likes her, especially since she was like way involved with the exes. But I think she needs her. So big difference there. She doesn't like her, but she needs her. Just like Kim D. She hates Kim, but she needs her. So I just think Jackie's another person that Teresa's going to use to further her little narrative and her storyline on the show.
And you have said this here before about Jackie. You spilled that tea like a few weeks ago or last week, but that's probably when Jackie says all season, Margaret has done something so egregious that I can't return from. That's probably what she means, like using this secret against her, so to speak.
She exposed her. And even Teresa told me that after Margaret exposed Jackie, that it was either after or during, I don't remember. But anyway, Teresa was like giggling. She was like, Dolores said Jackie needed a diaper because she was going to shit herself. And when we saw that on the preview, I was like, oh my God. As wild like as Teresa is, because Jen Aydin was the better note giver. Like Jen Aydin would remember everything like to the T. And I mean, she would come home and she would be like, Gabriela, write this down. Like, this is exactly what Rachel said, or this is what Melissa said. Write it down. Teresa was kind of all over the place, but Teresa, I remember she laughed over Dolores saying, Jackie, she needs a diaper. She's going to shit herself because she was outed by Margaret. So yeah, at first Jackie denies it, but then she ends up admitting it. And Teresa's like, hey, I forgive you or whatever. I'm not going to hold it against you. She turns to her and she lets it go.
What is Jen? I mean, she calls you after every scene, used to give you notes. I mean, I know she was just at Jill Zarin's party and she was on the carpet and she says, what am I going to do after the show? I'm going to count my Ferraris. I mean, you can say that all you want, but that didn't feel authentic. Like, what is she going to do when she's not on this show? Like, she's going to, I think, freak out. No, like this is her life.
She built that house for the show, correct?
Did she? I didn't even know that.
Yes. No, yeah, she told me she was living in a beautiful home and she needed something. She's been trying to get on that show for a long time. And we obviously saw her at the NB fashion shows. So her throwing it at Melissa during this last season's fashion show was like so ironic because she was attending, I think she was also attending Kim's fashion shows. Anyway, Jen's been trying to get on the show for some time. She built that house for the show. And how crazy when they asked her, what are you going to do if you're not on the show anymore? Instead of saying, I'm going to go back to being a full-time mom, I'm going to go back to taking care of my man, she says she's going to go back to counting her cars in her bathrooms. Like, shallow.
It's clear she has a chip of that it's not okay with her. Like that is just, I mean, and everyone could see that it's like she is in the comments, like she is trying to clap back at people through that rather than just live her life.
Much like she was acting it out, but the way she was being all wild about it, like it wasn't organic. It's weird. I don't know. She's gonna struggle. She's gonna struggle.
I'm shocked that Melissa and Teresa spoke in the finale. I mean, that's kind of a big thing. I mean, I know it was in the heat of the moment, but still they said they would never speak again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of shocking.
Well, actually, here, speaking of scenes that we didn't watch, there was a scene during, I believe it was during the bougie bling luncheon that Danielle held. I had in my notes, Teresa said at one point when she's going back and forth with Rachel, Melissa chimes in on the side and Teresa looks at Melissa and says, Melissa, shut the fuck up. And that Melissa actually shut up. That was in my notes. And guess what? We didn't see that. Production didn't show us.
I wonder if we saw that. Did we see that in the trailer at the beginning of the season? I feel maybe I heard that from it. That scene sounds familiar. Maybe I heard it from you.
Yeah, maybe me. Yeah, no, I didn't see it at all. It didn't air.
Interesting.
It didn't air. So then Teresa, really quick, back to what we might see tonight. And when I say might, I mean, I know some of the stuff we've seen in the previews, but not like the little details. Like we saw the hot dog lip thing in the preview, but we didn't see as to, like, we didn't get the what led up to Rachel saying that. And that was an exclusive dropped on your pod last week, I think, David.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so back to the finale, after that whole shit show between Jackie being exposed, Teresa tells me, I don't know if she did this after, but this is in my notes, before or after, but Teresa says, and she goes in on Margaret in regards to Joe Badigno. She starts to tell him, well, you've got another problem to worry about. Your husband has a problem with his hands. Like he's real handsy. Like he likes to touch women. And that Margaret hits her back with like, Oh, yeah, of course. And he loves Dolores. He's always touching Dolores. And Teresa said something like, well, he tried that shit with me or whatever. And I just pulled him away and she moved her arm. And she was trying to insinuate that Joe Benigno, he gropes women unwantedly, like that he makes them uncomfortable. And Margaret pretty much just laughed it off because she knows how her husband is and she knows he does not have a bad intention. Like, it's not like how Teresa was portraying it. And this also goes back, you guys, and why Teresa said this. This goes back to Laura Jensen. Teresa told me that Jim Leonard had the idea to bring Laura Jensen to the finale. They wanted Laura Jensen and Teresa's friend who works at the Brazilian beauty wax place to sit at the bar at Rails. And while all the girls were getting into it, Teresa and Jim Leonard wanted Laura Jensen to walk up to Margaret and to say, hey, your husband has a problem groping women, touching women, like with his hands. So when Teresa goes to say it to Margaret, it was because Laura Jensen didn't show up. Laura Jensen was reached out to and said, hey, can you come? And she decided, no, like, why am I going to do that for you? So good for Laura for not letting them continue, to use her. But anyway, so then she throws that at Margaret. And that's pretty much it in regards to
Who
finale.
reached out to Laura, like Teresa and Jim, and they were trying to get her
Teresa.
there? I mean, I wonder if production would have even been okay with that. Like just Laura
No,
sitting at the
production.
bar.
Jim Leonard said production didn't know. That was just something that was
Wow.
planned. And Laura declined it. And I'm sure Laura has this text message. Teresa reaching out and asking her to show up at the finale. And Laura said no. And good for Laura, because Jim Leonard even said he reassured Teresa that she won't get in trouble. And I guess Laura wanted to talk to her lawyer about it, how he felt. And either the lawyer or Laura herself said, no, not a good idea. I'm so thankful Laura didn't let herself, get used by them, because it was just another attempt to use her to get to a
100% to use her. There's nothing she would have gotten out of that. That's not going to get her on the show. So I agree. Good for her for realizing this
And you
is
know what? And they did
benefiting
use her.
everyone.
They did
They
use her.
did.
I don't know how everybody feels about Laura, but I know you're probably aware of this because you talked to Laura. They told Laura at the beginning of last year that they were going to film with her. They were going to go out to eat with her. They were going to wine and dine her. They were going to do to Laura what Teresa is now doing to Lena. We're going to go out. We're going to take pictures. We're going to show production that we're friends because we're going to try to sell you to the show. We want you on the show. And look, they didn't. I mean, I think she went to the premiere party with Jen for season 13, and that was it. They took any information she could give them. They used her for their benefit, for their storyline that they plotted and planned behind the scenes, and they threw her away.
I mean, that's what nobody realizes is I had many conversations, like everything you're saying is true. I had many conversations with certain people that used to be on this podcast that I could spill so much tea from now until next week. I used to talk to Laura all the time. So everything you're saying is 100% true. People don't realize, if I really wanted to take this podcast in that